In a sun-drenched village, where the wind whispered through almond trees, two children met beneath the gentle gaze of the morning sky. Kays, a restless boy with a heart too big for his chest, and Leily, calm as a still lake, with eyes that held the softness of early spring. They came to learn letters, numbers, verses, but instead, they learned each other. In the quiet of the classroom, where the sound of reed pens scratching across parchment echoed, their glances began to speak, not loudly, but deeply. The teacher saw nothing unusual at first. Just a boy and a girl, sitting a little too close, reading a little too slowly, lingering a little too long in silence. But something sacred had stirred. The kind of love that grows not with fire and fury, but with stillness, with breath shared across pages, with the ache of wanting before knowing what wanting means. No vows were made, no hands were held, but hearts, two young open hearts, had already begun to fold toward each other like petals at dawn. Days passed, then weeks, and the space between Kays and Leily grew ever smaller. Though not in distance, but in something deeper, something unspoken. Their names were called together in class rolls, their books often swapped. Their eyes always searching for each other, even when turned toward the blackboard. They never dared speak their hearts aloud. They barely spoke at all, but every shared smile, every accidental touch was louder than 1,000 poems. Sometimes, Leily would drop her inkpot just to hear Kays whisper her name as he picked it up. And Kays, he began to linger behind after lessons ended, pretending to forget his quill, only to catch one last glimpse of her walking away. The other children noticed, so did the teacher, but they said nothing because this love, it was still quiet, still delicate, a flower not yet touched by wind. But inside their hearts, a storm was beginning to form, not of rage, but of longing. And no one, not even they, knew how far that longing would go. What had been silence soon turned to whispers. Other children noticed how Kays stared too long, how Leily smiled only for him. Even the teacher, once quiet, began to frown. Parents murmured behind closed doors, Leily must not be distracted. Kays has lost his focus. The school became colder, not because love faded, but because eyes began to watch it. And so, what once bloomed in daylight now began to hide in shadows. But love, true love, does not shrink from silence. It simply waits and deepens. One morning, without warning, Leily's seat was empty. Her name was not called. Her books remained untouched. Kays stared at the doorway for hours, but it stayed silent. Still, whispers turned to answers. Her father had removed her from school. She's of age, they said. She must be protected. But from what? From learning? From letters? From love? Kays did not cry. He simply stopped speaking. In his notebooks, he wrote her name over and over, as if ink could bring her back. Without Leily, Kays became a shadow of himself. He wandered through the village, speaking to no one, except the wind, the trees, and her name, whispered like a prayer. He wrote poems in the dust, carved verses into bark, sang to the moon when all others slept. People began to call him Majnun, the mad one, not with cruelty, but with fear, and maybe a trace of pity. But he did not care. His madness was not brokenness, it was devotion. He had left the world, but only to remain in hers. While Majnun wandered deserts, Leily was locked in silence. Her family, ashamed of whispers, gave her hand to another man, a noble, but not her beloved. She spoke no words in protest. Her eyes said all. On her wedding night, she sat like stone, her heart elsewhere, her soul already taken. The man beside her could offer gold, land, name, but not the spark that once lit her world. Each day, she wore the garments of a wife. Each night, she dreamed of a boy with dust on his cheeks and verses on his tongue. Majnun left the village behind. The walls, the roads, the voices. He walked into the wilderness, seeking no path, answering no call. The rocks became his companions, the animals his kin. He recited Layli's name to birds, and they listened as if they too knew longing. He fed on roots, slept beneath stars, wrapped in verses only he could hear. They said he had lost his mind, but Majnun had only left behind the world that no longer held her. In losing everything, he held on to the one thing that still burned, his love for Layli. In the quiet halls of her husband's home, Layli moved like a ghost. She wore jewels she never touched, walked gardens she never saw, and smiled only when no one was looking. At night, she whispered verses into her pillow, the same lines Case once murmured at school. Her heart, locked in a golden cage, beat not for comfort, but for memory. Though bound by duty, she was never truly his. Each glance, each breath, each silence still belonged to Majnun. Her body was there, but her soul wandered somewhere in the desert, beside the mad poet who had never stopped loving her. Word of Majnun's wandering found its way to Layli. A traveler spoke of a wild-eyed poet living with wolves, carving her name into the cliffs. She smiled, not with joy, but with ache. He was alive, still lost in love, still hers. So she sent a message. A poem folded into silk, smuggled through hands that understood longing. And when Majnun opened it, his fingers trembled. He read the words aloud, not once, but 100 times, until the stars repeated them back. For a moment, he wept, not from sorrow, but from the proof that love, even separated by sand and law, still answered. Years passed. The world grew older, but love stayed the same. Layli, now pale and tired, walked through her garden alone. Each flower reminded her of verses whispered in youth. Majnun, thinner than a shadow, still wandered the hills. Still calling, still listening. They met once, perhaps in secret, perhaps only in dream. No words were spoken, only a gaze, only the trembling of hands that never touched. And then, as if love had held them long enough, Layli fell ill, a soft, fading flame. When news reached Majnun, he smiled, not in joy, but in knowing she was finally free, and soon he would be too. Days after Layli's passing, they found Majnun beneath a tree, still and silent. His head rested on a stone, the only place that bore her name. No struggle, no cry, just peace. In his hand, a final verse, written with fading strength. I sought her in the world, but found her in the beyond. They buried him beside her, though their families once forbade it, and the wind that moved through their graves carried no sorrow, only songs. Songs of two souls divided by men, united by love that time could not break. This is the story of Leily and Majnun, a love too vast for this world, too pure for its rules, told for centuries by firesides and poets, painted in ink, sung in sorrow, remembered in every heart that has ever longed in silence. Their tale, born in the sands of Arabia, was shaped by Persian poets and carried across lands as a symbol of love that defies logic, custom, and even death. In their madness, they found truth. In their distance, they found eternity. And we, the listeners, still hear their whispers in the winds between verses. Enjoyed the story? Download the full PDF version of Leily and Majnun. Insert subscribe for more Persian epics, visual tales, and illustrated stories. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and help this love live on.